Hi, I'm your guide, Alex Bond. Thanks so much for joining us here at iWatch Radio. Just a reminder, you can always send us an email about any questions that you might want to pose to myself regarding some of the content of these programs, and that would be at patrick@iwatchradio.com. Or, yes, we do have the phone number. You'll see in the upper right-hand side of the screen, 314-714-4200. And we do have ways that we can accept calls here now. And since this is going to be a talk show, it's all about you, too. My name's Alex Bond, and today's subject is, one of the more incredible videos that I've ever seen on the subject of, shall we say, the secret financial education and what has happened with that over the years as far as certain people trying to affect it with a hidden agenda. The video that I have, I've selected certain excerpts from a video that was done in 1990 by the author of this book right over here, G. Edward Griffin. This is just one of the books that he's written, one of the best that you'll find when it comes to understanding the nature of the Federal Reserve, how it was created and why, and some other aspects that also interface with that. But it's an excellent book to get a hold of to understand a little bit more about the financial end of it, that which is not going to be taught in schools, and for obvious reasons once you read the book. Nonetheless, the interview that we have was one done by the author of this book with a man by the name of Norman Dodd. You can certainly search the internet for him and find out about his participation in a congressional committee to investigate tax-exempt foundations. We'll get to that a little bit later, but first of all, I wanted to show you some pictures that came to me via email. An unknown aerial photographer, if this is your photographs, let us know. Recently, we had a very catastrophic tornado that hit Joplin, Missouri. You may have heard about it. 134 people died, many injured. And this is, just to give you an idea of some of the damage, this is a picture of the Home Depot in Joplin before the actual tornado. If you'll run the one afterwards, AJ, you'll get to see what the catastrophic consequence of an F4 or F5 tornado can do. Pretty amazing, isn't it? There's another picture that we've got of that too, I believe, but you can see basically it was the foundation, or not foundation, but all four sides, the roof, all gone. In many cases, could be a few hundred yards or half a mile or a mile away. It was swept up. Go ahead and run that next one, AJ. This is, again, the Home Depot from the air. Okay. These before and after pictures are really amazing. The town looks like it was virtually hit by a nuclear bomb, and so the devastation is so complete. Go ahead and run the next one there, AJ. This, again, is a before picture, so we've got the luxury of having before and after. Go ahead and run the next one there, AJ. I'll try to scooch out of here. As you can see, there's the pool there. The pool and every one of the roofs pretty much gone. This is another before picture. Looks like an apartment complex. Everything's nice and peaceful here until that tornado. And the next one, which, by the way, I think it was either 3/4 or maybe close to a mile wide. So it cut a really powerful swath directly through the town. As you can see, this is utter devastation. The only thing left, as you can see, are the roads. And at least that does allow access once they get clean. Go ahead and run the next one, AJ. This is a aerial picture. As you can see how much of the town has been hit. There's virtually devastation in almost, right through pretty much the center of town. This did not clip the town. This came pretty much zigzag right through the center. And very, very powerful. Go ahead and run the next one. Okay, this is that would be a before picture. Nice and cozy. And go ahead and hit me with, you got an after picture, another one on there, AJ? Is that it? Okay. That's the last Joplin pic. Okay, good. Well, at least that's what it was. That's what Joplin used to be. It's a town of about 22,000 people, and some people on the outskirts too, but only 134 dead. When you look at that devastation, it's miraculous that it was only 134 dead. Well, thank you so much for joining Mysterious America. Like I said, our subject today, we're going to have a video from Norman Dodd. Before that, it's with all the discussion in Congress about entitlements, about benefits, about all these kinds of things, I wanted to explore somebody that addressed some of these issues many, many years ago. A fellow that is known as Colonel Davy Crockett. We all remember who he was. He was born in 1786, died at the Alamo in 1836. Go ahead and run the first picture of Davy Crockett here. This is Hollywood's version, by the way. Go ahead, AJ, hit me with the first Davy Crockett picture. This will bring back some memories for some folks. He rose to the rank of colonel in the state's militia and was elected to the state legislature in 1821. Now, there's the Fess Parker version, okay? And, of course, Fess Parker played not only Davy Crockett, but Daniel Boone. I think he wore a coonskin cap in both of them. So I got a lot of mileage out of that. Go ahead. You can take, well, leave that on for a while there. We'll get to the real picture of Davy Crockett here in a moment. As a representative, Crockett apparently opposed some of the policies, in fact, many of the policies of Andrew Jackson, the president at the time. One of them had to do with the Indian policies that Jackson had. And in 1834, he was in Congress from 1826 to 1834 and then booted out, they think, because of the opposition to Jackson. What Jackson really looked like, what Davy Crockett really looked like. Go to the next picture of Davy Crockett here. This is the real Davy Crockett as a congressman. So quite a difference from the frontiersman. Of course, he was, at a very young age, a person that did learn a lot about being on the frontier and honed his skills as a marksman because he did a lot of hunting. Nonetheless, Crockett also did a lot of thinking, too. And when he was in Congress, according to the book, The Life of Colonel Davy Crockett by Edward Sylvester Ellis, one day in the House of Representatives, a bill was taken up appropriating money for the benefit of a widow of a distinguished naval officer. Several great speeches were made in its support. The Speaker was just about to put the question to a vote when Davy Crockett got up to speak. And here's the consensus about what he said. He said, "Mr. Speaker, I have as much respect for the memory of the deceased and as much sympathy for the suffering of the living." You can go ahead and run the other picture here, AJ, of Crockett. This is, by the way, Crockett's first log cabin as a young man. But let me get back to the comments that he had. He said, "We must not permit our respect for the dead or our sympathy for part of the living to lead us into an act of injustice to the balance of the living. I will not go into an argument to prove that Congress has not the power to appropriate the money as an act of charity. Every member on this floor knows it. We have the right as individuals to give away as much of our own money as we please in charity. But as members of Congress, we have no right to appropriate a dollar of public money. Some eloquent appeals have been made to us upon the ground that it is a debt due the deceased. Mr. Speaker, the deceased lived long after the close of the war. He was actually in government office to the day of his death, and Crockett says he never heard that the government was in arrears to him. Every man in the House knows it is not a debt. We cannot, without the grossest corruption, appropriate this money as the payment of a debt. We have not the semblance of authority to appropriate it as a charity. Mr. Speaker, Crockett said, I have said we have the right to give as much money of our own as we please. I am the poorest man on the floor. I cannot vote for this bill, but I will give 1 week's pay to the object, and if every member of Congress will do the same, it will amount to more than the bill asks. Well, Crockett took his seat. Nobody replied. The bill was put upon for passage, and instead of passing unanimously as was generally supposed, it went down. It received just but a few votes. And of course, Crockett's point held a lot of weight. Years later, he was standing on the steps of the Capitol with some members of Congress, and attention was attracted. Actually, this was years before this particular comment, I should say. Let me go back. I'm going to do a retrospective now where this came from. There was a big fire in Georgetown, apparently a pretty large fire. Some of the congressmen, some of the people went there, and apparently a lot of people were left homeless by it. So the next day in Congress, they decided to do something for them. And a bill was introduced appropriating $20,000 for their relief. They put aside all of their business and rushed it through as soon as it could be done. Well, the next summer, as the story goes, Crockett was back in Tennessee in his own district, and he felt he really had no opposition there, but the election time was some time off, and he didn't know what might turn up. He went riding one day, and of course, when you're politicking in the old days, it was on horseback, and there was usually a pretty good distance between farms. Not much of a way to, there was no Twitter, no Facebook, no internet. And of course, newspapers were the standard medium. Nonetheless, he was in his district and wanted to visit some of the folks there. He saw a guy in his field plowing and walked up to him and introduced himself. He began to introduce himself, and the man quickly said, "Yes, I know who you are, Colonel Crockett. I have seen you once before and voted for you the last time you were elected. I suppose you're out electioneering now, but you better not waste your time or mine. I shall not vote for you again." Well, Crockett was a little taken back by it, and the man went on to say words to the effect, it's hardly worthwhile to waste time or words on it. I do not see how it can be mended. You gave a vote last winter which shows that you either have not the capacity to understand the Constitution or that you are wanting in the honesty and firmness to be guided by it. In either case, you are not the man to represent me, but I beg your pardon for expressing it that way, he said. I did not intend to avail myself of the privilege of the constituent to speak plainly to the candidate for the purpose of insulting you or wounding you. I intend by it only to say that your understanding of the Constitution is very different from mine. And I will say to you what, but for my rudeness I should not have said, that I believe you to be honest. So there was still some admiration for Crockett from this gentleman. He said, "I admit the truth of all you say." Crockett responded, "But there must be some mistake. Though I live in the backwoods and seldom from home," or the individual here that was talking to Crockett, I should say, he did admit that he does get newspapers from the East, and he did hear about the $20,000 appropriation in Georgetown. And Crockett did admit the fact that he did indeed vote for that particular bill, and he thought that that was just the right thing to do at the time. The individual that he was talking to, the farmer on the plow, says, "It's not the amount, Colonel, that I complain of. It is the principle. In the first place, the government ought to have in the Treasury no more than enough for its legitimate purposes." But that has nothing to do with the question. The power of collecting and dispersing money at pleasure is the most dangerous power that can be entrusted to a man, particularly under our system of collecting revenue by a tariff which reaches every man in the country, no matter how poor he may be. And the poorer he is, the more he pays in proportion to his means. What is worse, it presses upon him without his knowledge where the weight centers, for there is not a man in the United States who can ever guess how much he pays to the government. You see that while you are contributing to relieve one, you are drawing it from thousands who may be worse off than him. Well, Crockett and this gentleman went back and forth for a while, and the man kept on pressing upon him that he has no right to give to charity. But collectively, they could do that themselves. As he says, "You have violated the Constitution with what I consider a vital point. It is a precedent fraught with danger to the country, and when Congress once begins to stretch its power beyond the limits of the Constitution, there is no limit to it and no security for the people. I have no doubt you acted honestly, and that does not make it any better, except as far as you are personally concerned, and you see that I cannot vote for you." Well, Crockett was really pretty leveled by this, and he said he intended to be guided by the Constitution. Well, he heard the speeches in Congress about the powers of Congress, and he realized that what this gentleman said at the plow has definitely got some very hard sound sense to it. And he started to listen to this guy. And the guy replied to him, "Colonel, you have sworn that once before, but I will trust you again upon one condition." Because he did say he was going to try to make amends for this. Crockett did. He says, "You are convinced that your vote was wrong. Your acknowledgement of it will do more good than beating you for it. If you go, as you go around the district, tell people about this vote." He wanted him to share his mistake. "And that you are satisfied it was wrong. I will not only vote for you, but I will do what I can to keep down opposition, and perhaps I may exert some little influence in that way. If I don't," said I wish I may be shot. "And to convince you that I am in earnest in what I say, I will come back this week. I will come back." Oh, Crockett was saying he'll come back in